How's it going? This is Freddie again. This video is mainly about workflow and maybe some of the tools that I use within my own studio that helps me with my own workflow, and maybe just some simple ideas that can help you with your own workflow. And when I say workflow, I mean just kind of how you go about starting and finishing a project or finishing a beat or whatever it is. And it's not so much about a fast way of finishing or a fast way of working, but more about an efficient way of working as well as an enjoyable way of working. Of course, anybody can start a beat or a project and start it and finish it, but is it an enjoyable experience to you? And I'm kind of like in this weird realm of thinking about my own workflow and how I can better, I guess, just make it better for myself so it's more enjoyable. And maybe these are some steps that maybe you can try as well. But first of all, I just want to talk about some tools that kind of helped me within my own current workflow. Of course, I said before I switched over from Machine to Ableton Push 2. And this tool has definitely has changed the way I create music. Like I said in some previous videos, I used to use Ableton in just arrangement mode, and now I use it in session mode when I'm sketching out ideas, as well as the knobs here on the top and the LCD screen. It kind of helps me with recording automation a little differently. Before, when I used to record automation, I used to use a Mackie control unit that I've had for a long time, but I got rid of it because I wasn't really utilizing it. It was just basically taking up space. And then after that, I would just go back to my normal method of recording automation, which was the keyboard and mouse way, or the mouse way, where you just kind of drag and click while you're recording automation. But there's something like kind of dissatisfying about recording automation in that way. Now I use the knobs on the push to record all my automation for different parameters within my beats, as well as I use tools like this. This is the PreSonus fader port, and I'll record automation to that using the fader, as well as you can use something like this, which is an iPad, and it's running the V-Control Pro app. And it's basically just a control surface that runs in tandem with whatever software you're using. So this particular app, it works with my Ableton, which is what I use, as well as it can work with Pro Tools, it can work with Logic, Cubase, whatever. Pretty much anything that uses Mackie or Huey protocol, you can use something like this. If you don't have the room or even like the budget for like a small control surface like a fader port or a MCU unit, I used to use this, which is the Frontier Alpha Track, but then the drivers became obsolete once it turned into like Yosemite and El Capitan and Sierra for Mac. It works great with Mountain Lion, and it still works great with Windows, but I just can't use it for the new version of Mac, which kind of sucks. It really sucks, actually, because I really enjoyed the LCD screen because it had information. But you can pick up one of these PreSonus fader ports for mad cheap. You could probably find a used one for around $60 off eBay, and it has like a motorized fader. See if I can bang through so you can kind of see. Whoops. Click here. Let's see. And like I said, you can use the iPad as well, controlling faders. Let's see here. See if I adjust it on here. See, the fader on there is moving. And vice versa, if I control it on here, it'll control on the fader as well. But yeah, I mean, these are just like small tools that I use within my own workflow that help me enjoy my workflow. Like when you're kind of just sitting there and you're just using the mouse and you're clicking here and you're clicking there, it kind of takes away from the experience of kind of enjoying the music that you're creating in a way, or even mixing. Even if you're just like mixing a song, it kind of takes away a little bit of the experience where you're just kind of going through the motions of just clicking and dragging, or inputting numbers, rather than using a fader to kind of have a tactile feel with the music that you're trying to mix. Of course, it's not for everybody. I would have to say using knobs for recording automation, or like using a fader to record fader automation or whatnot, it's definitely cool, but sometimes it's not as time efficient. If you're looking for more time efficient things, go with the way that you're used to, I guess, making music, And for me, that is using a mouse and keyboard. Like, if I can sit here with just the mouse and keyboard or mouse and trackpad and just record all my automation, or record, whatever I need to record within my sessions, I'll be done with beats like super quick. But to incorporate, like a fader port or the iOS app, or even my push here, while I'm mixing or adjusting certain parameters, it just kind of helps me get more involved with the music, I guess, sonically, and and whatnot, just to have, like I said, a more enjoyable experience when creating a beat. People ask, why do I have a machine and a push, and which one I prefer? They're completely different, I think. Push 2 is a dedicated Ableton app, or a dedicated Ableton hardware. And the machine, I had an MK2 before, this is a micro. The machine it has its own dedicated software if you're using it just to make beats. But I run the Ableton script with this, and I use it basically as a controller for Ableton. So I use the machine micro along with this DJ Tech Tools MIDI fighter twister in tandem, and I use it for live shows because it's just more portable. It's more lightweight, and it's smaller. It can fit in my backpack a lot easier. So I take this when I travel because it's just more convenient for me, and it's not like super heavy. The push is a large unit, as you can kind of see, and it's heavy and it's bulky, and like most of the time when I'm doing tours or when I'm traveling, I'm not going to be utilizing this push like all the time. So it's just more practical for me to bring like a machine micro with me, and maybe my iPad and this MIDI fighter, just so I can do my live shows a little bit easier. And then usually when I'm on the road, I'm not making too much music, so I can just use my pads on the micro. It's just so much easier. And if you don't have all these like tools, basically, you can also use an iOS app. I also run Touchable on here. Let me just kind of show you that real quick. Touchable is here. And Touchable is kind of like a Touch OSC app. It's not Touch OSC, but it's similar to Touch OSC. And then these are basically all the stuff within Ableton. See, it's kind of has the same layout as Push. Or you can pick like drum pads, or even like a piano down here. And then this is kind of like the mixing section. You can also pick certain plugins, like especially native plugins on Ableton, something like this. See, here is certain plugins like the EQ. You can do all your automation right here with just touching the screen. Has the delay, simple delay, has reverb. So you can, if you buy the pack along with Touchable, you can use all the native plugins within Ableton and just control them from your iPad. I know that having a touch screen is different from actually twisting like an actual physical knob, or touching a physical fader, or even pushing a physical button. It's still not the same thing, but if this is kind of like something that you're looking into, it's definitely something to consider, But yeah, that's Touchable. I can just use Touchable alone without even using the machine or the MIDI fighter or even the push. I can just use this alone while I'm traveling, and it doesn't take up any space, and it works great with Ableton. And it works via USB, which is kind of cool. You can just hook it up to your laptop via USB and then, run whatever you need to run. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what I wanted to touch upon as far as workflow. I'm at this weird kind of point in my studio where I want to downsize a lot of stuff because I feel like it's gotten to the point where there's just way too much stuff in here. I'm not, like I said in a previous video, I'm not like a studio hoarder. I'm not a gear hoarder. If I feel like I'm not utilizing certain equipment, I'll just get rid of it because there's no sense of me keeping it. And since I'm going to be moving this year, it's just going to be, I feel like I'm either way, I'm going to have to downsize in general. So I think that'll be a great time, great time to kind of rethink my workflow a little bit. And sometimes I'll be listening to old tracks of my music, and I'll kind of think about how I made those old tracks and what I was utilizing or what tools I was utilizing to make those songs. And say we went back to Study Guide and we went to, Shoulder Kiss from that track. I kind of think back of how I made that track and how I guess simplistic it was for the tools that I was using to make that track. Because really that track is just, if I can remember, I made it with just a computer, a mouse and keyboard, and I think just a small little MIDI keyboard, and that's all I used to make that track. And then, I look at my studio setup now and how I incorporate all this stuff, all these keyboards and, all this MIDI equipment in my production. And sometimes you don't need all these complicated, tools to make great music, So I think that's a good way of, I guess, thinking about it, is just kind of revisiting old songs just in your memory, and the workflow or the thought process or the creative process that you went through in those old songs, as opposed to how you create beats now, or how I create beats now, and going back and revisiting that old workflow can be a good thing, because sometimes, like I said, sometimes you don't need I don't need the Ableton push to create that sound or that old feeling that I had before. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of this weird idea I just kind of been thinking of, just kind of, I guess it's just taking things that you learned before and incorporating it into what you're doing now. And sometimes it's okay to kind of take a few steps back and make different stuff, or make stuff how you used to make it, and then coming back to where you are presently, and just kind of using the tools that you have. Yeah, so that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about in this video. I kind of went over the dialogue for this particular video in my head while I was driving back from LA, and I probably missed a bunch of key points, but anyway, yeah, I know it's just a small aspect of workflow that I kind of talked about in this video. It was mainly talking about the tools that I use. And I go through gear, I go through spurts of gear all the time throughout the years, and I keep stuff that I really do utilize, and I get rid of stuff that I just do not use at all. Sometimes it has to be kind of like a trial and error thing, where you'll get a piece of gear or a new studio tool or whatever, and you'll play with it and you'll realize that it's not for you, or it's not really meeting the expectations that you were hoping it would. Because I had that idea in my head for a long time, where especially when I was first making music, like I said, I started off on a computer, but then I moved into using an MPC, and I thought for a long time that once I got an MPC, that my music was going to be dope. I'll finally get an MPC and everything's going to change. But I slowly realized once I transitioned from a computer into an MPC that it just wasn't for me. Like it wasn't, it first off, it just wasn't time efficient for me, and like I just couldn't recreate the sound that I wanted from coming from a computer getting into an MPC. And I'm not in no means that am I bashing the MPC at all, because I still think it is an incredible piece of hardware, especially the older ones. Like MPC 3000 has like this fantastic history, and even just the Akai line, MPC 2000 XL and 2000, I mean, these are all legendary machines. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it just wasn't for me. And, you know, like once I got my 2000 XL back in the day, you know, like playing around with it for like a few months, I realized that it just wasn't a tool that I really needed. And you come to these like expensive realizations, like you spend like $500 on this beat machine, and you're like, wow, like I'm not even going to use this thing. And you kind of learn it the hard way, shelling out $500-$600 for a machine, and now you're trying to resell it just basically to get your money back. But anyway, that's just like a whole different thing. You know, like I said, like you can, for your workflow, you can sit here and have pretty much nothing. You can have the very bare minimum and still make incredible music. I feel like I'm kind of slowly going back to that. Like, since I said I'm going to be downsizing my studio, I can't wait to really get back to that way of thinking where I'm just basically using my computer and just kind of like my knowledge of what I've learned throughout the years, and just kind of incorporating that into my production, and not really depending on too much gear for my production. But yeah, you know, whatever. Other than that, I probably won't be uploading another video for a while, because I am going on tour for most of March. I'll leave the dates and the cities that I'm touring in for Europe for March. The first show starts on March 1st, and then it runs into the later part of March. So check the description for if I'm in one of those cities. Hopefully you guys can come out. I really do appreciate it. Doing a few beat sets as well as some DJ sets in other cities, so it should be a fun time. It's hard. I'll say this, for touring, people think it's really easy and it's really cool, and I would probably say that if I was in my early 20s, but now that I'm a little bit older, in my 30s, I have to physically and be mentally prepared when I go on tour, especially Europe. I think Europe is kind of like the hardest as far as touring, only because the clubs or the events, they start later, and then you basically get very minimal sleep, and you wake up the next day, have to catch a train or a plane to the next city, and you're like dead tired, and you have to do it like over the next night or the other night. So I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying I have to physically be prepared for it, because it's a strain on me physically. So I've been going to the gym a whole lot for like the past couple months, and trying to eat a little bit better. But yeah, thanks again for tuning in. Check the dates if I am landing into one of the cities listed for Europe, and hopefully I can vlog while I'm overseas, just depending on the internet connection. Hopefully I can upload just some small videos. Either way, just try to follow me on Instagram, instagram.com, Freddie Joachim, or Facebook or Twitter. I would have to say Instagram, because I kind of utilize that one the most. And you can kind of see what I'm going through as far as my tour in Europe. But yeah, thanks again.